No hate to whoever created this tier list, but these names are not very good. Because in my opinion, no season of this show is terrible. So I would not put a single one that hate it. So let's quickly change that. I think that's a little bit better. I mean, me putting one in D tier is going to make it sound really bad. So I might make one slight adjustment. So I'm going to start this off by just straight away putting in my last place, so you know the benchmark. Now, me personally, as I've just stated, I don't hate a single season of this, but for me, by quite a bit, season 1 is the weakest. Now, there's nothing wrong with season 1. I think the issues people have with it are definitely there, but they're not there to an extent that it bothers me that much and that it puts me off watching. I think some of the stories have some really cool ideas as well. Some of my favorites being the magical place and tracks. I think these two just stand really well on their own, but also build to the greater story. I think a magical place is one of those episodes that really gets you involved in the story and it fully sets that up. And from that point onwards, I was just so intrigued. Now, tracks is more of a standalone. It does lead into another episode that affects the plot heavily, but for me, that episode has just got a solid concept and it's really fun throughout. Now, obviously, we have that ending of season 1 where that streak of 5 episodes is amazing from that turning point, and I can't ignore that when I'm giving this placement. But if I'm being honest, every other season here is just better. Now, we'll get to what I put above it next, as it is the next one coming up, and that is season 6. Now, I'm going to put season 6 slightly above in C purely because it has its story arc. It tells that story arc pretty well. I just think for me, the issues with it are more with the ending. I love what they do throughout the season. I think there's just a few things they don't clarify that well, and the whole mystical element of it with the dark dimension sort of stuff going on isn't as interesting for me when it's a sci-fi show. Considering Coulson died, them bringing him back in this way was perfectly fine for me, as it tied up that loose end from season 5 with the fear dimension sort of thing. I actually thought that was an excellent explanation rather than just him being a doppelganger from a parallel universe. S.H.I.E.L.D was a decent enough villain. She wasn't that interesting and I wasn't that invested in her, and for a good while I didn't even know if she was the villain because I thought it would be so much better that Sarge was still the villain. But I was fine with it in the end, and it honestly just felt like a segue into season 7. That season was so much better for me. Probably should not have said that yet.
Spoilers.
Now, I'm going to just keep going in order that they have the shows in here now. And next is season 2. And I think, ironically, I'm also going to put this in C, just ahead of season 6. What am I talking about? Not just ahead. It's ahead of season 6 by quite a bit, but still C tier. So season 2 for me was almost what season 1 could have been had that twist been early on. We've now had that twist, and we basically got a whole season of what season 1 was like, essentially, in those 5 episodes. I thought having both the alternate S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of being the villain, as well as Zhang in Afterlife, was really interesting. Sky's dad in this was also an amazing character, and I'm glad he stayed on past the halfway point. Whitehall was quite fun, and that starting portion of the season was engaging, and I loved the introduction of his character and trying to find the Inhuman temple and create those people. I was really invested in his character, and it may be a controversial opinion, I'm not sure. I kind of like him dying that quick. I thought he was a major villain, and he was set up to be, and he was gone so fast. I think this season was one of the best seasons for handling character deaths too. As much as I loved Trip, his death was so like annoying and sad because I really liked his character, and it annoyed me he died. But also it was so perfect because it was so sudden. Like, you're not expecting it one bit and it just happens. And I think it's kind of a similar thing with Gonzalez, where he's obviously going to talk to Afterlife. You don't really know Zhang's power that much. She just hits him with that Terrigen and he goes, he's gone. And again, another death that you don't expect, and it happens so fast. Another great thing they do, although not in as big a way, but Coulson losing his hand, I thought that was all of a sudden. He just gets hit with the Terrigen and Mac chops his arm off. There was many things like that were so good and just affected the characters so well that I did enjoy. However, for me, some of the stuff with the alternate S.H.I.E.L.D. and with Zhang just didn't sit well, and I think the resolution for that wasn't perfect. I must say the most defining moment of the season is just Fitz. It's so hard to watch him in almost any scene. It's just, the actor does such a great job. I'm not even going to try pronounce his name because I know I'm going to make a fool of myself. You may have heard I had loads of positives to say about season 2. Yeah, it's still in C tier, which is the bottom 2 tiers. The only reason being is if I were to rate it between S being my favourite, last place being my least favourite, season 2 would sit somewhere in the C, you know, 80% of the way down. But yeah, it's not bad at all. Now, next up just so happens to be season 3, and this season for me sits at a B. I think it's better than season 2, but I think that's because I find the Inhumans way more interesting. So for me, having them in there already and having S.H.I.E.L.D. have to deal with the aftermath of season 2 was so good. The mystery of Lash was amazing, and his abilities were just so cool. Now, I actually love the second half of season 3 probably more, and I'm not sure if that's like a hot take or not, because I know a lot of people do not not like the alien wars sort of thing. So I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Is that a hot take? Do you agree? Do you not? Just let me know. But I think they handle Ward coming back so well in that part of the season as this non-Ward Ward, if that makes any sense. I think they handle him as a character so well, considering it is the same actor. He doesn't feel like the same character, and he does such a great job. I love the concept of his abilities and him being the first Inhuman, being the one that's kind of like king of Inhumans as he can control them all, and then having Lash be literally the antidote to him. I know Lash ends up dying, whatever. He technically was the antidote that saved Daisy. The ending for me as well is one of the best endings to a season this show has, with Lincoln's death in that ship. When that happens, it was so sad, but I just love them chilling in space together, talking, having a conversation. I thought that was just brilliant. And we can't forget, obviously, Coulson killing Ward. That whole 2-episode sequence of him just on a mission to kill him. Brilliant. Now, next is season 4, and I already know this is going to get hate, and this could be because I've just finished rewatching the whole show that my opinions have changed. But I'm putting season 4 in A. It's not my favorite. Now, season 4, there's probably not many flaws I'm going to talk about in here. For me, I think the first arc of Ghost Rider was definitely weaker. I still enjoyed it. I still like watching that. But for me, the other 2 arcs were so much better. And episode 50, 100% the best episode of the show. Debatable when we get to season 7, actually. But that whole thing with the LMDs and the twist and it actually being Daisy, not an LMD, instead of Fitz and Simmons. And that episode is just so well done, so fun. Like, you actually are scared for the characters in that. And that just sets off, like, the finale of the season with the whole Hydra universe framework world. I think literally my only negative that I have about season 4, probably Ghost Rider coming back just to kill Ada. I don't mind him coming back. Him being the solution is just terrible because it kind of is like, if he wasn't there, they probably wouldn't kill her. They'd lose. That's it. And I hate that that's the solution. I think there definitely needed to at least be some other attempt to accept that. But at the same time, the rest of the season's so good that it doesn't bother me that much. I'm not really going to talk much more about season 4. You will probably love it. I'm sure you can find other videos talking about all the excellent things. They're probably going to be the exact same things I were to say. Now, next up is season 7. And here's where it's going to get controversial, 100%. Because I've rewatched these recently. Season 7 was the only season I watched caught up with the show. I don't remember it being as amazing and as exciting and well put together as I did this time I watched it. So for me, season 7 is now my favorite season of this show, which is very weird because most shows, the final season, not really the best. But for me, it's completely different to the others. So it could easily swap in place of like season 4 another time because like the tone is completely different. But that season is just fun. Like if I had to title it one thing, fun. I just love the different time periods they go to, as well as like the use of the time travel. I think that explanation for time travel is really good. Obviously it coincides with Endgame, so it's the exact same rules, but I think the way they use it is so good. They do it at the root of one timeline, and you go back, you can make ripples, change it, butterfly effect sort of thing. Whereas in this, there is that in there, as we see, but it also has the multiverse theory. Another thing, Agent Sousa from Agent Carter in here was just amazing. Like, I love that they were able to do that because it just adds to the time travel element of it and making them believe that time can be changed and things like that without major consequences. And it was just, again, extremely well done. Season 7 for me as well has some of the best episodes. I don't necessarily know the names of these episodes, but my favorites are definitely the Noir episode, which is Sousa's last one in his actual time period, the Time Loop 100%, and then the Mac and Deke episode in the 70s was just brilliant. Well, 70s, 80s, I can't remember, it was around there. They were just super fun, if I'm going to be honest. Like, it didn't take itself too seriously like the other seasons, and for a finale season, it was kind of the best way to do that, because the show has already got to a point where it's a bit ridiculous. You know, Coulson's came back for like the 5th time. You've got May, who is now a telepath. You've got someone with superpowers that like have vibrations out her hands. You know, you've got a guy out of time. Why not have episodes like that? And this season does it all so well. The finale is literally the only thing that lets it down a slight bit for me, purely because there's some decisions in there that make no sense. Like Cora being the whole reason for the time travel. Like, they need her. I don't get what for. I'm pretty sure it's to bring back Daisy. But then my other issue is Daisy dying. Like, that was a massive explosion. Like, how is she not even affected a little bit? She comes out and she's just like sleeping almost. Like, she doesn't even look like she's been hurt. It makes no sense to me. So that is literally my only gripe with that. Other than that, I think they end the stories really well with the characters, and I'm still so excited to see where they go next. I'm still holding on hope. They have to return someday, you know, multiverse in the MCU. Bound to happen. Trust me. Now, last is season 5. Now, this has always been one of my favorite seasons of the show, and the only reason it's going in A right now because I've watched season 7 recently, and that was amazing. But this time watching season 5, I loved it equally as much. I think for me, some of the episodes in the second half are a little weaker, as everything with Hale just isn't as exciting with me for the most part. But the opening 10 episodes of this season is the best 10 episode streak this season has, in my opinion. It is completely different to anything this show's done. one, and it was brilliant. And not to mention, this season had massive budget cuts, so that lighthouse set was used for the whole season. It didn't even feel that way. Like, you clearly could tell that it was the same set, but in the future it felt completely different to when they went back in the past. And again, I actually love this season. The ending with Graviton was brilliant. The way they ended the show, as this was meant to be the last, they thought, was pretty excellent. I don't have many negatives for season 5. Literally just Hell's a weakish villain. That's why it's my top 3. But that is all I have for this video. I'm sure many of you will find these placements a bit whack, and you're probably going to be like, why has he got this here? Why has he got that there? Put your seasons in a ranked order in the comments. I'd actually love to know. I know number 4 is at the top for most, but if any of you don't have number 4 at the top, I'd love to see what you have there. If you did go on to enjoy the video, please like it. Maybe subscribe if you want to. And I'm sure if you've made it this far, you love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. enough that you'd want to see another video like this. So why not check out my video on all the spin-offs that we never got for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.